Hello, my name is Roberta Hadley. I am with the Center for Home Ownership and Economic Development. We are joined again by Melanie McIntyre. She is a licensed clinical mental health counselor associate with the Armstrong Center for Hope, and she is joining us here again for another Q&A session. So welcome back, Melanie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the last time you were here, we were focusing on strategies for parents and students and helping their students develop homework skills. So today we are going to be focusing our Q&A session on helping students develop social skills. And of course, in a post-COVID era, that is badly needed. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your feedback on that topic. So welcome back, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's start again. So talk to us a little bit before we get into the questions that have been submitted. What are some overarching themes or things that parents need to consider in wanting to support their students develop healthy social skills?
Well, Roberta, I definitely agree with you. I think social skills are huge. The one of the biggest parts of children learning is through social interactions. And one of the things I would like for parents to keep in mind is managing their expectations of their children. So even when we think about how our children interact with others, we have to keep in mind two important pieces of information. One, they're carrying your DNA. So if you want to just or an idea of how your children will interact with other children, whether they'll be social butterflies or introverts, do an analysis of yourself. They are carrying your DNA. They are their own little individuals, but they pick up a lot of their behaviors and traits from you. Also, the very first social interactions children have are with their parents. So that sets the foundation for how they learn to socialize. Um, for example, in a household where there's a lot of yelling or a lot of loud talking, that's what children deem as normal. So they go to school and they talk loud because that's what they see and they hear. Another social thing to keep in mind when we are teaching children social skills is their developmental levels. Um, I had a parent come into the office and share concern that their child was not engaged with other children on the playground, but rather sat off to themselves and observed rather than interacting directly. And I assured the parent that that is still a form of social learning, um, and that is also appropriate for their developmental level. So, for example, even as adults, we may go into a social setting and we may sit back and observe what's going on in that social setting before we just dive in. And that is exactly what that child was doing at that time. So I want parents to keep their expectations in mind, keep in mind that social skills are taught, but there's some aspects of socialization that are innate and that are also genetically motivated. So it's important for parents to remember that going into understanding how to best support their children in developing social skills.
So I'm curious to know how do we as parents, I guess, draw the line between encouraging our child to be themselves as an individual versus, fitting in or being what is, I guess, classically defined as normal. So how do you kind of draw that line and make sure that have that your child is in a safe place and in terms of their development, even though it doesn't necessarily look like the 10 students that are sitting next to them?
Absolutely. A great question. So, one thing is knowing your child. If your child is pretty quiet and reserved at home, they're most likely not going to be the loudest kid on the playground. But I think parents have to also be aware of um, how their child interacts at school. And that can be done through a conversation with the teachers. So, for example, if your child isn't necessarily boisterous and playful and overly active on the playground, well, how does my child interact socially at school? If the teacher expresses concern that, yeah, they're kind of off to themselves, they don't ever play during recess, then that may be cause for concern. However, if the child isn't playing at the park with other children, but is overly engaged with children at school, it might just be a level of it might just be a matter of what's comfortable for the child. Also, encouraging, gentle encouragement. I would also tell parents to do that. So some parents, for example, may want their child to be actively engaged with other children on the playground, and so they can encourage that. But if the child is giving a lot of pushback, I wouldn't force it, because that's just going to increase their anxiety, and it could lead to development of social anxiety. So gentle encouragement, so gentle nudges, it's kind of like if you want them to be a part of an organized sport. Yeah, encourage them to do it. But if they're just absolutely opposed, kicking and screaming, then that's not the area for them. They have to find another way to socialize. And so I would encourage
Awesome.
exploring other options in that case.
Awesome. That's helpful. All right, so let's dive in. We have some additional questions that have come in from parents that are looking to support their students' social skills. So
Nice.
let's get to it.
Sounds good.
All right, our first question: how do I teach my child how to play with other children?
Great question. Great question. Especially for 3, 4-year-olds who are coming out of that selfish phase of this is mine, to actually interacting with other children. I would suggest that first demonstrate the skills with your own friends in front of your kids. So if you're having a dinner party, for example, if it's appropriate, have your children observe you in interacting with your friends. Being in settings such as churches or YMCAs or gymnastics and things like that provides opportunities for children to observe other children and play. And as I previously mentioned, children learn through observation and they learn through play. So even if they're sitting back and observing, they are learning how to interact. They will mimic you. If you ever have had the opportunity to watch children play dress up or play house, you would be amazed at the things that they've observed at home, and they are mimicking those things. So if you demonstrate social skills in front of your children, they automatically will pick up on those skills and start mimicking those behaviors within their own social groups. I also encourage parents to give them numerous opportunities in a variety of settings to practice social skills. So that could be through school activities, organized sports, community activities. Another good example is just even taking them to a trampoline park. They have an opportunity not only to burn energy, but to socialize with people they've never seen before. And the more encounters they have like that, the less likely they're going to be socially have social phobia, or they're going to be less likely to pull away when other children want to play with them. So also taking them to parks, just providing different opportunities in different settings. And the reason I think it's important to offer a variety of ways to socialize and a variety of settings is that there are some kids who are just physically active. They just, everything they want to do and everything they're good at is physical, whether it's climbing or running or skating. But all children are not athletic. All children are not physically strong. All children are not interested in those things. So then, having an opportunity for them to go to places like Build-A-Bear or things that require them to use other skill sets, doing art, doing music, independent activities like gymnastics and swimming, things like that provide different opportunities to stimulate different interests in different children. So I think that's going to be a huge benefit to the parent and the child in the terms of developing social skills and building friendships and relationships. And they get to observe it in others.
Awesome. This video is certainly not about me, but I certainly believe in sports and arts. I think those two things are just critical in development. So I appreciate you saying that. The trend I'm hearing is that you're saying things are modeled. So it's important to just not expect kids know how to act and how to be, but that they're watching you, and we've got to make sure that we're careful what we're doing in front of them. So that's helpful feedback.
Yeah, that's a great point you make. They don't just come into the world just with this knowledge. It has to develop. And that is one thing that one of the biggest conversations that I have with parents. And You've heard me say it multiple times in managing their expectations. You can't expect them to know something that they don't know or that they've never been exposed to. So, I think you made a very valid point there.
All right, let's move on to our next question. This is a great one. How do I teach my child how to share? It's
Oh man, I used to
impossible.
get
No, I'm kidding.
right. It is. It is. It is. And prior to being a therapist, I actually worked in preschool, and I love the 2 and 3 year olds, and everybody just really avoided that age. And it was because they're labeled as terrible 2s and 3s. But that again goes back to expectations and development. And at that time, they are learning how to parallel play and transition from parallel play to socialization. So to teach your child how to share is gonna go back to what we just talked about, and that goes to being a model in front of your children. You can do that in a number of ways. So one way is practicing sharing your own things with your children. So for example, say you're eating a sandwich, and whether you want to share it or not, offering, hey, would you like a piece of mommy's sandwich, or would you like a sip of mommy's drink? It not only shows the child that sharing is a good thing, but it also teaches them how to model that same behavior. And eventually it teaches them how it feels good to receive something, but also how it feels good to share. Another good strategy that I've seen parents use, and I've primarily seen it done at Christmas time, but you don't have to wait till Christmas time to do this. You can do this at any point. And that's when you decide to buy your child a toy, buy two different toys, or they could be the same toy, but buy the toy. And when they receive the toy, encourage them to give it to someone else. They don't need to know about the second toy, but for that first original toy that they think they're getting, they're going to be super excited about it. Encourage them to share it with someone else, whether it's someone in the park, someone in their class, someone in their Sunday school, someone in their family. Share it with another child. Then when they do that, then reward them with the second toy. And so what that teaches is it feels good to give, and I'm rewarded when I do share. And so that's that positive reinforcement that promotes behaviors that we want to see over and over again. And I think that is a great thing that I see people do at Christmas times. It also teaches them to be a little humble. And so the more they practice that skill, the more they see you share, the more they practice sharing in different situations, it becomes automatic. They begin to do it naturally.
Awesome. You made me think about this podcast episode I heard recently, and I'll just share the end that this young lady took her niece to a shoe store, I think, but he was playing with some other toy that was in the store, and she was like, "We're not getting this toy today." And when they ended up getting to the checkout line, she reminded him, "I told you we're not getting this toy today." And because he was so compliant, the cashier was like, "Can I buy this toy for him?" Because the normal reaction is tantrums, screaming.
Yes.
She was just so outdone that he was just like, "Okay, this is not going to be mine today." And he had moved on in his mind. But that was definitely not what the cashier was used to seeing. So that modeling and reinforcement and all that is good stuff.
You reminded me of a situation that I also saw. Now I'll make this really quick so we can move on. But there was a single mom, and she had a little girl. Then she would often take to work with her because she just didn't have a lot of social support to help her. But there were times where money was a little bit tight, and so she would make a sandwich at home. And if there was not enough for her and the child, she would obviously give the sandwich to the child. Child didn't think anything about mom not having anything to eat. The child was like, "Oh, mommy's sharing with me." Well, the child asked the mom one day, "Well, why aren't you eating? Why would you share this with me? Aren't you hungry?" And she said, "I want to make sure that you have something to eat." And so time went on, and they didn't really think anything else of it. The little girl ate the sandwich. And so one day they were walking to mom's job, and there was a man sitting on the corner, and he had a sign up that he needed food, that he was hungry. And the little girl kept pulling away from her mom. She was like, "What are you doing?" And she reached in her bag and gave the man her sandwich. And the mom was like, "Well, why did you do that?" And she said, "Because he's hungry. You shared with me when I was hungry, and I'm sharing with him when he's hungry." Mom didn't do it to teach her specific skills about sharing. She was just trying to make sure her child had something to eat. But as a result, the child learned that we share things with people who have less than us or don't have. And I thought that was such a powerful moment.
That is definitely powerful. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
All right, we have our next question.
All
Um,
right.
how do I teach my child how to make friends?
All right. Great question as well. And it kind of ties into what the other parent asked, but just demonstrating skills in front of your child. Using opportunities, say, for instance, at the grocery store, when you go down the aisle, just simply speaking to someone when your child is present teaches them that it's okay to speak with someone. And of course, we have to be mindful of strangers, of course, but in the appropriate settings, just demonstrating those social skills in front of your child is one way. Also, again, providing opportunities for them to meet in different social settings. So whether it's the YMCA, whether it's a ballet class, whether it's chorus or a singing group, I think giving them different social settings to meet other children, to observe other children interacting, will encourage them to do so as well. Um, Providing opportunities for them to uh, enhance skills such as expressing how they feel. You can do that through observations of videos. Like YouTube videos are really helpful with that. Parents can sit and watch with their children and then ask questions at the end of the short videos for kids and say, how did Sally become Timmy's friend? Or why was Amanda so concerned that Samantha was sad at school today? And having them build those concepts around socialization actually teaches them how to be social. And we don't think of watching videos as a learning tool, but it actually is. And he or she may remember, just like the little girl with the sandwich. Well, Sammy was sad, so Amanda did this to make her happy. And then she too learns that when I'm in class and someone's crying, I'm not going to tease them. I'm going to do something. They'll remember the video. I'm going to do something to make that person feel better. So just again, demonstrating, modeling those skills in front of the children.
Awesome. All right, we are gonna get two more questions for you here.
All right, sounds good.
Our first one is, what can I do to improve my child's social skills?
Okay, good question. So to enhance social skills, I like to put emotion regulation and recognition into that pile. And the reason for that is because think about adults. If you're talking to someone who's not emotionally sound in that moment, it's very hard to socialize with that person. So the first thing I would say to enhance social skills is to teach your child how to recognize their internal emotions, their internal emotional temperature. So if I'm on the playground and I'm sliding and then there's another kid who slides and they, kick me in my back and I get upset, teaching your child, okay, it's all right to feel this way. So now what do we do with that? And so one good way to do that is in that situation, parents encouraging the child to turn around and say, hey, that hurt me. And then the other parent teaching their child to apologize. Those are social skills that we need a lot more of this day and time, but those are the very fundamentals of social skills. And letting them know it's okay that I feel this kind of way and I can articulate that feeling to my friend. Taking children to restaurants is also a good opportunity for social skills because yes, children need to play. Yes, they need an opportunity to run around and get energy out. But sometimes there are social situations where you simply cannot do that. For example, church, concerts, restaurants. So taking them to a place like a restaurant where they have to practice sitting still is very good. And also allowing them opportunity to tell the server what you would like to drink. It helps with those communication skills. Demonstrating communication between you and your spouse, or you and your partner, or you and your siblings, or the other children in the neighborhood. Those things will also teach your children how to socialize and develop social skills. I also like using books. um, books and movies, sitting and watching something with your child or reading a book with your child. Have them observe the characters, identify the emotion that that character feels, and then allow the child to either finish the storyline, they can create their own, or they can say, well, why was such and such sad? And it makes them think about it, and it makes them think about what a subsequent action could be. And even though it doesn't seem like it, those things are building social skills. They're teaching the child how to recognize social cues and how to respond to those cues. Um, Another way is using puppets or baby dolls. A lot of times, just active play allows the child to get creative and come up with a story in their own mind. And a lot of times, through their storytelling, you can kind of see where they are in terms of socialization. Um, and you can see, even if it's a negative interaction with the puppets, that's a learning tool. Why did this puppet slap the other puppet? Well, that's a time for exploration and a time to correct certain thoughts and behaviors. So even if it's something negative, giving the child an opportunity to explain, whether they're telling you through a story, whether they're telling you through art, whether they're telling you through puppet shows, giving them opportunities to present it in their own vocabulary, in their own creative way, will also help strengthen some of those skills. I like this idea that one psychologist came up with for children with who are on the autism spectrum. A lot of times they have a hard time with the emotion recognition as well as social cues. And so he had the parent to write different scenarios on a piece of paper that were associated with some kind of emotion or feeling. And then they would pull that strip out of a hat or out of a bag, and they would work on that skill every day. And the parent would take the child to the park or to the grocery store, and the child would identify that emotion in another person that they observed. And then they would talk to the parent about that emotion. And I like that idea too, because it gives them an opportunity to practice the skills that they're working on, but also to do it in a public space. One other thing that you can do at home is take a piece of paper and cut it in half or draw a line down the middle and have some different emotional faces on one side, and then have a scenario on the other side and have the child draw a line um, from the scenario to match the face of the emotion that's associated with that specific scenario. And someone may say, well, how does that teach social skills? It teaches social cues. So if, for instance, you have a child who sees someone crying and they're laughing at them crying, that's not the appropriate response. So you're teaching them what the appropriate response should be based on the social cue that's given. And that ultimately, over time and with practice, teaches them how to interact in a healthy way socially.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. You have provided so many helpful strategies, and I know that this is an area of great need for parents. So thank you for all the information you provided here. Before we close down, are there any general comments that you want to provide in the area of developing social skills?
Sure, yes. I'll just leave a few final thoughts and kind of just some highlights of what I've already presented. I want parents to know that once children recognize their emotions, once they learn to regulate their emotions, they then learn to control them. And once they learn to do that, they learn to interact with other kids. So their interaction is based on how they're feeling in that moment. So just like adults, if you're not having a greatest day, you're not going to be the most social. So I want parents to understand that it starts with emotion regulation. It starts with the behaviors that are modeled for them at home. And if they can keep that in mind, that will help set the foundation for developing those social skills. And just to recap on some of the things that I mentioned before, in case someone missed it, teaching skills like reciprocal conversation, taking them to a restaurant, letting them order a drink and watching the server respond. Teaching them taking turns. Here, mommy's using the menu now. Here, now you can use the menu. Sharing and demonstrating the skills to the child. I also mentioned that they can use made-up stories, that they can watch videos, YouTube videos and movies, and have discussions with their parents about what is happening in the movie, the video, or the book socially. What is this character feeling? What is this character doing? How are they interacting? Is this appropriate or is this not? Asking the right questions. Giving the children words for their feelings and words to express themselves helps them navigate things when they're in their own social settings. So, for example, if a child is taught, I don't like the way this feels, please don't do this to me, or they won't have a problem saying it to someone who maybe is playing a little too rough on the playground. So those things will develop over time, but with more and more practice and demonstration, then those skills will get stronger and stronger. And finally, I would just encourage parents patience, because it's a process. We're looking for progress and not perfection. And if parents can remember that and manage their own expectations of their children, I think it'll go a lot further in terms of how they teach their own children how to socialize. And guess what? It teaches them patience as well. So I think those will be some helpful skills for parents to take away, and encouraging their children to be little happy social beings, and to develop the appropriate social skills based on what's appropriate for their development.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We thank the folks that submitted questions for today. We hope that they will find the responses helpful in navigating the development of social skills for their children. We certainly hope that the parents and families that are involved in our Peer and Family Support Services project are, benefit from this conversation. Our centers are working on this project and have been doing so for about 2 years now, I think. So we're enjoying the process of helping our families, and hope this will provide them with even more skills to help navigate accomplishing goals set with their students. So, well, thank you so much for being here. And, we look forward to sharing this information with our parents and our students.
Great. I appreciate you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.